Hey, Senda.
Hey, Phil.
What would you like to talk about on your birthday?
Wait, I'm supposed to come up with the topic like right now?
Cue music.
Right.
And welcome to another fine episode of Panda's Talking Games. I am your host, who is the same age today, Phil.
And I am your other host, Senda, who is a year older today. Actually, today. A week ago, as you're hearing this. No, a yesterday, as you're hearing this.
Yay.
We're not
Happy
recording
birthday.
very far ahead anymore. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's my birthday.
It is your birthday. So just so that we can put the show in some context, it is one, today is your birthday. Two, you have been sick all week before.
Literally since last Sunday.
Yes. So we weren't even sure we were recording an episode because yesterday you actually sounded pretty rough, like voice-wise, and we were like,
I sounded like I should be a contralto, and I'm a soprano.
Yeah, so we were like, maybe not. And then this morning when I called you to wish you happy birthday, you sounded much better. And we were like, maybe we could just knock out like a little thing because we are heading into the holidays and we're going to wind up missing an episode. So let me just do that right now as point of business.
Yes.
We are heading into the American Thanksgiving. So for our American friends, happy Thanksgiving. For you international listeners, what this means is that normally when we record, we will be doing, which is like the weekend, I will be away and Senda will be doing family stuff, and thus we will be unable to record a show. So, the show you're listening to right now drops November 22nd. Mm-hmm. You would be listening to it on November 22nd. The show that drops on November 29th is not going to be there. There will be no show on the 29th because we will not be recording that weekend. What I do not know yet is if there will be a show on the 6th. We may try to jam one in, but we are going to take a second attempt at a vacation.
Yeah, the trip that was canceled before.
Yes, and if we do record anything for the 6th, and we haven't made that decision yet, we either have to rush and record it, which is possible.
We might do. Mm-hmm.
We might do it on Monday the 29th. Or we may have to do two hosts, one mic.
It sounds so terrible when you say it like that. Like so bad. It like almost makes me flinch. It's like, whoa.
Two hosts, one mic. While you're at my place. The weekend of the 4th. Not 100% sure how that's going to go. We will update you on social media about the episode on the 6th, but and maybe what we'll do is just recycle an old episode to just put up on the 6th. We might just do a redux, like just recycle an old episode so there's something in your feed, especially you new people who might not have gone through the whole backlog. There are many past episodes.
Gosh, we've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, we do have a backlog we can actually pull from. We can actually just pull an oldie but goodie out. So that is all to say that like that's all up in the air. Where I think I feel more comfortable for sure is that December 13th there will be an episode.
Yeah, we know for sure December 13th.
December 13th there will absolutely be an episode. The 6th, not 100% sure on.
A little iffy. Yep.
Right. You're 50-50 on the 6th and you are no episode on the 29th. Okay. Mm-hmm. Sorry to have to put all that calendar stuff down, but it's always important. We don't want you to think we're pod fading away for any reason. Nope. We're not. But we do have a couple things coming up.
Yep. And frankly, as I just said, we've been doing this for like 5 years. And we used to do things like frantically pre-record episodes and stuff. And now we have just decided that it's okay to take time off. And so we will just give you a heads up about when there won't be an episode.
And that's not a That's not a 5-year thing. That's a pandemic thing.
Okay, fair enough. That is a pandemic.
That is a pandemic.
Yeah.
Post-pandemic, we've been a little more chill about putting ourselves through the ringer, because we've absolutely put ourselves through the ringer, like before conventions and things like that, to hammer out a show real quick.
Consistently, yes.
And then what we kind of learned is like, maybe that's not always the fun thing to do.
Maybe we don't have to do that, since we do this for funsies.
Yeah. So maybe we'll figure out the 6th. We'll let you know on social media. But anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand, which is your birthday.
Yes.
Happy
okay.
birthday.
Good. Thank you.
I know that it hasn't been a lot of fun this week because you were sick, and I've actually talked to you all week. So I know that, like, not only were you sick, you were actually super sad during part of the week because you were feeling pretty miserable.
I was very miserable, and I had purchased the weekend before. I was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to take my kiddo. We're going to go back to Meow Wolf. We'll try and finish the storyline. It'll be fantastic. I'm so excited. And then I got sick the next day, and I was like, well, it'll be fine. I have like 5 days to get over this. And then Friday rolled around when I had the tickets for it, and I was like, I cannot go. So that was a super huge bummer. So, but I've rescheduled that also. It's just November seems to be the month of rescheduling everything. Which is what it is, but doing better now, feeling happier about it now. Have some very mild plans to make my child and Andy sit down and play a game with me, a party game, where you get magnetic fridge poetry magnets.
Oh.
Yes, they would be magnetic. Yes. That was a little bit of a Department of Redundancy department moment. So you take, it's a fridge magnet game, and you get a prompt, and from the limited words that you have available to you, you have to write a response to the prompt.
I mean, I think it's hysterical.
I cannot wait. I just got it a couple of weeks ago, and I was really excited to play it then. Excuse me, it didn't work out, because we had a massive homework night instead, because it was like end of trimester wildness. So I'm like, it's my birthday and I want to finally play this game.
Yeah, I think that's
awesome. What we're going to do. Going to order dinner out and play the game.
Yeah, did you decide order dinner out from where?
Yeah, I'm in Modern Market.
Yes, you said that this morning.
Yeah.
Mod Market.
Mod Market, I love it.
I'm going to tell you that Mod Market is, I think, a very regional thing, because
yes.
on the East Coast, I've never heard of it. But having gone out to Colorado a few times, I've had it. It is very delicious. It is farm fresh food that is super yummy, and I am constantly addicted to their summer corn pizzas.
Yeah,
which may sound odd to some people, but consistently has been super good.
Since they just switched over to their fall menu, it has historically meant, I haven't looked at it yet this year, so I'm going to look at it tonight for dinner. It has historically meant that they are suddenly really into truffles and fingerling potatoes. So you might be surprised, but like the fingerling potato pizza.
Oh, I would eat that.
Oh man,
I would eat that.
Really
I have zero problem with that. That's
yeah. So anyway, Mod Market, their menu just switched over to the winter menu. So I'm excited to see what's on it this year. It is a locally sourced farm to table kind of place that is Colorado based. So
it's pretty yummy.
I am a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they have free delivery today, so that certainly doesn't hurt. So that's good. So that is my plan for dinner. It's not anything super duper fancy, and then I got gonna have chocolate lava cakes.
Yeah,
like oozy warm chocolate cakes.
Yeah, nailed it.
That will be good also. Let's see.
Cool.
What else?
All right, so we should probably talk about something gaming related.
Oh yeah, that's not. Oh man, I have failed.
Oh wow, you left your phone on. I'm gonna let that slide because it's your birthday and not make fun of you for it. So.
Yep.
You are free and clear.
Sorry, there's yelling and a child, and I don't know what's happening. Okay, carry on. This show is a mess.
I mean, this is what happens when we record midday on a Sunday.
Midday on a Sunday with no script.
Yes. So cool.
Yep, this is what happens.
So we're talking gaming stuff. We need to talk about a gaming topic because this is a gaming podcast. It is your birthday. I will discuss any gaming topic you like. I'm at your disposal today.
Okay, well, and so I'm going to go to this one because it's the one that's on my mind, and we may have already talked about it before,
Okay,
and
sure.
I don't remember. And if we did, it was a really long time ago, so whatever. But so you and I have been chatting about for a while how we are going to start a game of Thirsty Sword Lesbians.
Yes.
And two things. Firstly, as we've said before, we're not going to record it or anything, right? Because that changes the experience of playing it.
Yes.
We do actually just want to play the game for the purpose of playing the game. So we may talk about it, but we are not going to share APs or anything, just to be super clear about it.
Yes.
But the thing that I wanted to kind of bring up, because I do think it's interesting, is that we are intending to play this game as you're going to GM and I am going to be single player.
Yes.
And sometimes people get weird about two-player games that are like that, right?
Sure.
But and there's also a difference between a single GM, single player, and two players shared GM responsibility games, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, in terms of the feel of them. So I don't know. Is there a topic in there? Do you think that we could chat about the differences of setting up to play them?
Yeah, I think. I think that one-on-one, one-on-one traditional GM-based games aren't super popular, and we have a couple of years ago we talked about this because we were dabbling with doing we
legacy
weapon. We were going to do a legacy weapon AP for the show.
We did for a little bit,
and it just never we did a little bit of it. And it never really took off, kind of thing. There were a lot of things behind that. Some of it had to do with life situation stuff. We are in a place where we are more free to just game online. Like it is, life has made it where it's gonna be much easier to do that. So it's actually a lot more fun. And I have a better place to record. I'm not freezing in the basement.
Freezing in the basement. So, I feel bad all those nights you froze your butt off down
it was necessary. This is much better. This is going to be a much more comfortable thing. Also, years ago when we did it, while you had done a lot of gaming online because that's how you were running She's a Super Geek, I hadn't, and I wasn't really a big fan of it. But pandemic... And now I'm super comfortable running games online.
No problem.
Yeah. So the fact that one, I'm more comfortable running games online. Two, we've decided, two, my life is such that running a game online, on a Saturday evening or something like that, is very doable. And comfortable, right? I have a much better place and warmer place to record. So I have an incentive to sit and record. I don't have to be oh God, I have to go downstairs and not feel my hands or something.
Bring a blanket.
Yeah. I don't have to do any of that, right? I can get into some comfy clothes and make a cup of tea and just sit down at my desk. I have my full rig, which is a thing I didn't have before because you know this, but people don't. When I would record in the basement, I would just take one of my laptops, my small laptop, and I'd have just my 10-inch MacBook Air screen.
Yeah.
Right. And that's okay for recording the podcast, but it wasn't ideal for
playing a game. No, because you didn't have enough space on the screen to deal with all of the gaming accoutrement that you would usually have on the table.
And a table space. So it's really cool because now that I can do it at my desk in my office, I have two 24-inch monitors. I have plenty of landscape to put you up on the screen, plus have it notes and still have my table space for my cheat sheets, because we're going to be playing Thirsty Swords Lesbians. So what I really need are the GM moves. Right. Mm-hmm. And the specific moves when different NPCs take damage. So I have all that stuff. I can have all that stuff right on the table. I'm sitting in my super comfy chair, all that stuff. And honestly, in the time that we've done that, you've also transformed your whole space. That space is much more conducive to gaming.
So much better. I now have a giant L-shaped sit-stand desk.
Yeah.
And I have I don't have two 24-inch monitors. I just have a single 30-inch, and then I use my laptop screen as my secondary display.
Exactly.
So I have one very big primary monitor, and then sort of the secondary one that secondary stuff lives on. So yeah.
So we have
good.
in terms of that, like everything's much better physical space wise. Two, I think another big decision that we decided was like not to record it.
Yeah.
I think we were
sorry, y'all.
No, it's fine. We were inspired by the Gauntlet. We were inspired by the Gauntlet folks who were doing the mini APs as part of their I can't remember that excellent Dungeon World podcast that Jason Cordova did.
Dragon Fear of a
Fear of a Black Dragon is their OSR, their review of OSR games. Wow. I can't believe I can't remember it. I'm so embarrassed. I loved that podcast. I loved it even more because I was playing Dungeon World at the time.
Forward?
What's that? Plus one.
That one's
no.
Powered by the Apocalypse one.
Make me just find this now.
Yeah. Anyway,
Discern Realities.
Discern Realities. That's such a good name for a podcast. Anyway.
So we were inspired by that, and we were also trying to figure out like fun things to do with the show and stuff like that. Anyway, take all that aside. We're gonna play one GM, one player, and I'll tell you briefly because in case people are wondering. So we picked Thirsty Sword Lesbians because that was definitely the tone of the game that we wanted to have, which was swashbuckling. Pansexual, flirting,
disaster,
yeah, all that. We did not pick one of the settings that came with the game or one of the settings that came with the advanced one. We actually were working on a game that we play tested a little in Fate, and we just never quite got it to where we wanted it. And I thought it would make a fantastic Thirsty Sword Lesbians setting, and I pitched it to you, which was our I always forget this. The
Queen's Musketeers.
Yeah, I think Queen's Musketeers is probably the safest way because I'm always afraid now to overlap Alex Roberts.
I know
the name of Alex's game, so we'll come up with a much better name for it. But essentially, it's the Queen's Musketeers in a time where time travelers have arrived in 17th century Paris and have introduced all sorts of technologies. And so there's a little bit of, for my cyberpunk fans, there's a little bit of, from the short story Mozart and Mirror Shades, which is a chef's kiss, fantastic cyberpunk short story. There's a bit of that going on where this time traveling corporation is actually up to no good, and the Queen's Musketeers have to kind of protect country and ultimately protect the timeline. So we thought that, like, we've always liked that setting. We've toyed around with that setting. You and I have talked about it a bunch of times, and then we were trying to do like a real serious espionage thing with it, and it was kind of working. But we thought, hey, wouldn't it be fun to just, put Thirsty Sword Lesbians on top of that because Musketeers.
Musketeers.
And, kissing and flirting with people and
swashbuckling.
Yeah, but now add to
disasters, it. Right. That's what Thirsty Sword Lesbians does.
Yeah, now add to it people from the future and this weird mix of technology where, there are balls, but people are now showing up in modern suits and, French aristocrats have cell phones and those kinds of things.
Yes.
So just a really interesting mix of stuff going on. So yes, that's our game that we're playing. And we're actually going to write up, I actually have to take our source material and put it into the format of a Thirsty Sword Lesbian setting so that we kind of have everything. Because there are some custom moves I would like it to have, things like that.
So I think that actually leads into what's really interesting about chatting about this to me, which is kind of the difference, maybe just in the social dynamics of sitting down to play a game where you're if you go back and listen to She's a Super Geek, the one that just comes to mind that I know is available for everybody, but hey, content warning, it's pretty intense and kind of depressing, and I know a lot of people were not able to actually finish listening to it, which it kind of has a happy ending, so if that helps. But we did play The Sky is Gray and You Are Depressed. which is a 2-player game, which I would distinguish from like a one-on-one traditional GM single-player game. So that was a game in which we were both taking on the role of characters, and then as necessary also GM, right? Mm-hmm. Although in that game it was pretty much just a conversation, so it was pretty much just characters all the way through. So there's an interesting thing there because you're walking into that, you're both representing kind of the same amount of power in the world to define things and make decisions. And the interesting thing that's different about this game as we're setting it up is I'm like, ooh, I get to play it. And I'm like, oh, you have to go off and do all the work to like create the setting and stuff. Like you have to go be prepful GM and prep.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's actually not a big deal because I'm always prep GM, right? Like,
I mean, that's true. For me, I'm like, oh, look how much work you're doing.
Yes and no, right? Like, there's some initial work that needs to be done for build, like just to get the setting into the correct format, make some custom moves and things like that. But then, like the actual playing. And this is the reason why, like, when we were talking about what game should we play, my suggestion was I would like to play a Powered by the Apocalypse game because that is a game that requires far less prep. Like,
yes,
like there's a good set of one-on-one games from Pelgrane. Sorry, there's a whole bunch of there are a whole bunch of games now that Pelgrane has released for doing one-on-one versions of their Gumshoe games, which I think is brilliant because a lot of times that's how you see detective and thriller stories and like that as one character, right? So one character, one GM. Like they have a one-on-one version of Night's Black Agents. Yeah. But that would require a lot more work for me.
A lot of prep.
Right? That's
especially because mysteries just require a lot of prep.
That's what I'm saying, right? Mysteries require an actual real amount of prep, which is, I start my mystery prep with a document called What's Really Going On. Then from there, I kind of like break down what are the major sites you'll see, what clues would you find, how do all those clues tie to the what's really going on. It's a process, right? It's a process I actually love to do. I'm running Night's Black Agents right now, and I love it. But for us
you don't need to do it twice.
For us to play a game, one of the things that I had asked you for was something that would be easier to prep. And what's very easy to prep is Powered by the Apocalypse, because so much of the game just happens with the roll of the dice, right? Those 7 to 9 moves kind of really like push the game along. So my responsibility for that game is really, one, just get the setting into the correct format, get any custom moves like together. Like if you look through the Thirsty Sword Lesbian book, each setting tends to have some custom moves that are about the setting. And there's a cool cyberpunk one in there that has an investigate move. And I was like, cool. I actually am just going to lift that move out.
Handy.
Because we'll be probably doing some investigation.
Yep.
And then I will probably make a move or two about dealing with people when it comes to social status. Because social status is still a thing for 17th century France. So trying to persuade or browbeat the cardinal is going to be a far more difficult task than intimidating a few guards, right?
So I do want to slip one thing in here quickly, just because we're talking about Thirsty Sword Lesbians a lot.
Yeah.
If you are hearing this on the day that it drops, this is your last day to kickstart the print version of Advanced Lovers and Lesbians. So if that's a thing that you're into, you have like today to do it. I'm just going to say it right now. If you're hearing it after this point, you missed it. Hopefully Evil Hat will have it out later. But if you're on board for the Kickstarter, pause the podcast, go back it. Now, Advanced Lovers and Lesbians is a thing that they completed as part of the first Kickstarter, so this is about getting it in print, which is pretty cool. Has some neat stuff in it. Went through it. There's actually a specific little just section about playing the way that Phil and I are going to play this, which is one-on-one.
Yeah, and that was actually the other consideration, which actually this game made a lot easier, was when we were looking at one-on-one games, I was like, cool. Whatever PBTA game we pick, I kind of have to read through and decide, like, how am I going to deal with whatever the game requires. Now, Thirsty Sword Lesbians, the major piece of that was that you heal by having you heal through a move that you do with other players.
Yes.
Which in a one-on-one game we don't
There's
have
no
access
other players.
to.
Yeah.
And I had some ideas about it, but actually the rules that they have were pretty much the same thing I was thinking about and kind of address it. And so I'm like, okay, cool. We have a ready avenue to play one-on-one.
Yep. So it's all laid out, which was really useful.
Yeah. So
thought I would just throw that out there since it is literally still current on Kickstarter in this moment.
Yeah.
53 more hours as of the time of our recording.
So I think that, like, to me, the challenge isn't really going to be like that I have to GM it, right? Because I'm pretty much an almost always GM, and it's honestly like it's not even a thing I'm sad about. Like, I love GMing. In the top bottom, dom sub GM player dynamic, like, I register almost always on one side of that line, right? Like that is pretty much a constant. I am. So yes. So that part doesn't bother me at all. I'm totally fine with that. Prepping PBTA, super easy. That only requires a little bit of work. And my guess is when we play, that my one evening of prep will yield more than one session of material.
I would assume so. Especially because I also know I'm going to slow down and we're going to have some, intense character moments. Like, that's part of what
and that's the parts I like
here. So.
Right, that's the parts I don't have to worry about. Right,
yeah.
Like what I really need to do, and this is actually part of the TSL setting. Is like the TSL setting is like info about the setting, some custom moves, a bunch of potential characters to put into play. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to go do all that stuff. Like, and I have a bunch of like character names and things like that from the background material we've written before. So I'm just going to prep all that.
Just grab some of
We'll make some more characters when we do session 0. We are going to do a full session 0.
Yes.
In fact, we're going to do it when you're here on vacation.
Yes.
We're going to do a full session 0 where we're going to make your character. We are going to make a whole host of NPCs in addition to the ones that we have. And, we'll talk safety, we'll talk lines and veils and stuff like that. Specifically for Thirsty Sword Lesbians, in our safety section, we need to talk about romance, sex, and things like that.
Yep.
Because that is very much a part of this game. We need to, like, draw our lines and veils or what doesn't need to be veiled in our discussions.
Yep.
Right, so that'll be all part of that, and and I think I'm gonna make it easy. I think I'm just going to recreate, because it'll just be fun to do as a first adventure. I'm just going to recreate the playtest adventure when the Duke of Buckingham shows up at a royal ball and no one knows why.
Yep,
so,
I remember that one, but it's been a long time, and I'm sure that it will not play out the same way.
Yeah, and I may just change reason. I may just change the reason why.
Yeah.
But like that one, I think will be a perfect. I think it will be a perfect intro one for us. It's it's a party, and there's there's all the dynamics of a party.
Lots of people,
and yes, places to
investigation.
Exactly.
Sneaky.
Yes, the Duke of Buckingham.
Make the flirty and try to get the information.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, good.
So yeah, I think like to me, I think the interesting the part that will be different, right? The part where I need to be cognizant is like when we start to play. Like, one, you and I have a terrible history of playing games one-on-one.
Yeah.
We have many times in the past attempted, for all various reasons it has not worked, right? Like,
yeah. We got a good couple hours into oh goodness. It was one of the
romance trilogy.
The romance trilogy,
yeah.
And then
Emily Care Boss's romance trilogy. We
mermaids, and it was great.
Yes.
And
anyway,
we finished all the setup, and then we never actually got to play. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. So the thing is, like, we've historically we've had bad runs of playing one-on-one. Now, I think a lot of things that we talked about early on are some of the things that will make this much easier.
Yeah.
But then, I have to get the game going.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the first part, right? Like as long as we get the game started.
If we actually start the game, if we break through the inertia to actually start the game, we will play the game.
Then I think we'll be good.
To be honest, like we did do the legacy weapon, and I think part of the reason that we succeeded at starting it, because we did a lot of really cool world building that hopefully we'll bring back other places at some point, because there was some cool dead god stuff happening in there. But part of the reason that I think we succeeded at starting that is because we had to, because we did it on the mics.
Yes.
So, like, there's good stuff and bad stuff about recording, right? And I think this one we just want to do as a game. But, like, it means that we have to be responsible to ourselves for starting it.
Yes. So that's like the first, like, that to me, the biggest challenge is going to be that. And I think now, from a piece of gaming advice, the way that I want to address it is that I'm going to use a ritual.
Okay, that makes sense.
We're going to do a ritual to start. And I don't know exactly what that ritual is. If we were playing in person, it would be the big die.
Yep.
For people who've listened to the show before, people who know me, I have this large 96 millimeter 6-sided die, right? It is like a baseball
Monster.
And I use it as a ritual when I want to play a game and everybody to pay attention. I put it on the table. And it makes a distinct thud when it hits the table. And when it's on the table, we only play the game. We don't side chatter or anything else. And people, if people do start to side chatter, people will remind each other by pointing or touching the die. And we're like, yes, yes, yes. And then when we take breaks, we take the die off the table and everybody chit-chats.
Yeah.
We are going to do something similar. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to put some thought to it this week about what the ritual is, because the ritual will be how we let ourselves know that we need to focus and start playing the game.
Yeah.
So good. So we'll do that. That's my first concern. The second concern, which I'm not too worried about, it's just the thing to be cognizant of, is that historically one-on-one games don't actually need a lot of time. Like, we don't need a 4-hour block of time to play the game. We can probably do it in 2-hour blocks, because you're going to get all the spotlight.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to pass it around. It's all for me.
Yeah, you are the player.
I get to be very selfish.
Yes.
You do all of this work to feed me a story and be everything in the world for me to interact with, right? Yes. It feels somewhat diva-esque, but I'll take it.
Yeah. It's okay. I'm really not worried about, again, I'm not worried about the dynamic, and I'm not worried about you having the spotlight. But I do know that when it's one player, you burn through stories faster.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to go around the table. I don't have other scenes. I don't have you doing one thing and someone else doing another thing, at the same time, and I'm cutting back and forth, which stretches out linear time. So my guess is these sessions are going to be 90 minutes to 2 hours max.
Yeah, which is probably pretty perfect for a Saturday afternoon, evening kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine. Because we don't really have to worry about having a time. And if we run out of story, then I'll just trigger end game, and
we'll stop. And
we'll do XP and all that stuff, and then
we'll play next week. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not. So that's for me. That's a thing. Pacing wise, we just need to be aware of, and also because it's just the two of us, breaks. We may just need one bio break mid game.
Yeah.
Just something. If we're only going to play for 2 hours, just at the end of the first hour or so, just quick bio break, freshen up your drink, grab a snack, come back. We'll play a little bit more, and then we'll wrap for the evening.
But it's also easier because it's just the two of us to be more informal about the breaks if we need to. Right,
absolutely.
Find a resolution point of a scene and just be like, "Hey, I need to go grab a bathroom break or whatever," and it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah, and that is also okay, because one of the things that happens in my regular game is if one of my players is I have to go to the bathroom, then that pretty much breaks the tension at the whole table.
Yeah,
and then everybody's
break. Yeah,
right, and then it's nope, let's just break.
Yep.
Yeah, here, if you have to go to the bathroom, it literally is like, I'll be back in a minute kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes, because it's like, that is the game.
But it does take me like 15 minutes to bring a group back at a table, right? Like,
yeah. Yeah.
So there's that. Mechanically, like I said, there were some concerns. And I think if you're setting out to play a game one-on-one, mechanically, you kind of, as a GM, you need to kind of scan the game and determine, what will be different if you're playing one-on-one. A lot of games, not every game, a lot of games assume that you are playing with 2 or more players, like 3 or 4, and which usually means they've divided up the roles.
Yeah, but
right?
I think there's a thing, they've divided up the roles, so they've made the each character be a little bit more niche specific, right?
Exactly.
And or if you are dealing with sort of preset challenges, like in a monster manual or something, then they have also set up challenge ratings with a specific assumption of how much power you have as a group, with the assumption of how many players you have. So that's another thing you got to think about. And then when you get into things like Powered by the Apocalypse, there are definitely moves that rely on other players. And that is a pretty typical thing. Like, I think it would be, potentially a challenge with it, certainly without some, sitting down and thinking through it, might be a challenge to play some of them just because they do rely on other actual players to do specific things that are different than how you interact with NPCs.
Yep. And so not to plug my own product, but to plug my own product, the legacy weapon.
The legacy weapon
was specifically the way to address that for Dungeon World.
Yeah.
Right. And the idea was that you're going to play one character, one GM, and that the legacy weapon has its own moves and it has its own past lives, and because of that, it has collected moves from other playbooks that now make it accessible for your character, so that you can heal or pick locks or something like that based on how many past lives are in the legacy weapon.
It's also interesting because it makes it a little bit of a roguelike. Like if you go into the dungeon, you get killed, then something from your character stays with the weapon and you start with a new character in the weapon, right? Like, so you can just keep going in and dying.
That was always the plan, right?
Yeah.
First of all, I love roguelikes. Second of all, I actually think it would be wild to do a campaign that is centered on the weapon.
Yeah.
So what I would do is, imagine this. I would do a campaign that would be a mix of Microscope and the legacy weapon. And so you would use Microscope to make a history of the world. Then you load up the legacy weapon, make your character start playing. If you die, you then go back to Microscope. You advance the world some 100,000 years, whatever. Then somebody else finds the weapon with now your character added to it, and then you start playing again.
Yeah.
Like that is ultimately the campaign that one day perhaps you and I will get to, like you and I will play as a one-on-one. But in the meantime, Thirsty Sword Lesbians is where we're going. But here's the touch of irony, because we're talking about one-on-one play and the legacy weapon and stuff like that. I wrote the legacy weapon, the first draft of it, over Thanksgiving.
And
many years ago. I was
Thanksgiving.
Yes, I was riding shotgun in a car heading to my parents' house, and I was like, well, isn't this a little interesting idea? And like started kind of scratching out the first versions of Legacy Weapon during like while the turkey was cooking.
Yeah.
So
fun. I mean, it's funny because I haven't actually released it anywhere yet. It's pretty much put together. I also just wrote a 2-player game, but it's not a GM player game. It's a, 2-player in character letter writing game, about vampires. Yeah, I should put that out somewhere. Anyway, I'll just dangle that here so people remember that I did it, and then when I say it on Twitter, they can be excited about it.
We'll put it together.
Yeah, it's pretty much, but it's laid out and everything. There just might be some grammatical tweaks and stuff. But it's.
I think I had one or two questions. I had one or two comments. They were minor.
Clarifying questions. Yeah.
They were, and I think they were literally just clarifying questions, not anything major. All right.
Yeah.
So in essence,
Yeah.
We've talked about some of the challenges. I'm just going to sum them up so people have it as kind of some takeaways for one-on-one GM one player adventures, right? So the first one is the mechanics of the game, right? Making sure that the mechanics of your game are such that having just one player will still have access to or be able to do all the things that are kind of necessary in the game. That's going to vary based on what game you're playing, right? So like check the game you're playing, think about what it would be like if you didn't have all the players, and kind of figure out what would you need to give a single player to be able to do all those things.
Yes.
2, because you don't have a full group, starting could be difficult. Consider the idea of a ritual, a way to kind of indicate like, hey, we were sitting around chit-chatting and just being cool with each other, but now we need to focus and be in the game, right?
Yeah, now we're gonna play a thing.
We're now actually going to play a thing. Then 3, consider that you probably don't need as much time as you need to play. Or if you are going to play 4 hours, you probably need to prep more material than you think, because 4 hours of one-on-one time is a lot more material.
Yeah.
I highly recommend you just go like if you're going one-on-one, just make shorter sessions. I think you'll be fine with it. But if you're really committed to 4 hours, like either be ready to ad lib out that 4 hours or have a lot prepped in place. Cause I think my gut feeling is you will burn through it a lot quicker. Or as a GM, because you're going to be playing one-on-one, let scenes just blow out a little. Right. So take the slack and take the slack out of the line and let those scenes breathe a bit more, because you don't have to work the spotlight around the table.
Yep. Not at all.
Yeah. Those I think are probably the most important challenges, at least definitely the ones I've seen as like kind of like getting ready to do this. Like those have been the ones where I've been like, okay, I think like, here's what I think. Here's where I think our challenges are. I think they're all fixable. It's just a matter of being prepared.
Yep.
So I am going to prepare
before you get to them. Yep.
I am going to prepare what we played once as a 4-hour session, and then we will see how long it takes us to get through it. And that will give me a good idea. That will give me a good idea of how much material can we move through in, say, a 2-hour block.
Yeah. Yep. That actually should give you a pretty good idea.
Cool.
It's handy that you've run it before and you can use it as a scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty open adventure too, so I'm not terribly worried about it.
I've kind of co-run it and played it a couple of times, so I'm pretty familiar with the basics of it. It's gone very different directions both times.
And it'll be different because we're going to be playing it in TSL.
Yes.
So that's actually going to be, it's going to have a very different tone.
It's going to have a different cadence too,
yes,
I think.
Exactly. Like all of that's going to be different, but I'm very okay with that because I think overall the objective of that adventure is pretty straightforward. How you approach it will be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So anyway, you may hear more about this game as we get into it. It may produce future topics for us. It may produce topics. Yep.
Or if you're just interested in it, we could do like a 5-minute summary of our recent sessions when we get on the mics.
Yeah. Maybe.
We could absolutely tell you
if people are interested.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's just gaming stories.
Yeah.
Which, exactly. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love telling gaming stories, but they're not the same if you weren't there.
Exactly. Okay.
So, cool.
Happy birthday.
Thanks. It's my birthday.
It is.
I'm older now.
Older is correct because I need to remain
old.
You said old the other day and I had to correct you because I am old. You are older now than you were last year, but I still remain old.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for listening, everybody. Before we go, Senda's going to, off the top of her head, make up a blurb about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network.
Boy, am I. You should probably check out They're a Super Geek because they are super cool. And they do both a live show streaming on Thursdays, and we release that audio as a podcast every other Thursday. You will want to check their schedule because it is also getting a little bit mixed around by the holidays, but they are playing some absolutely fantastic games, and I am so unbelievably thrilled to listen to them. So
Awesome stuff. Cool. Say, Senda, where do people find us on the internet?
Well, you can find us on Twitter at Pandas Talk Games. You can find us on the Misdirected Mark forums, which is forums.misdirectedmark.com. You can drop us an email, panda@misdirectedmark.com, or you can find our TikToks, where I apparently only talk about vintage clothing, and Phil posted one video about
Underground.
I'm
tempted to do some more. I just haven't yet.
But if you can find us, you can absolutely catch us there as well. And Phil, once they find us or write down that information or collect it in some way, what can they do with it?
Leave us a topic. Normally this show is driven by your topics. Today being Senda's birthday was
it's my birthday.
A special day, so we decided to let Senda pick the topic. But normally we do topics that are of interest to you. Our job here on the show, as it has always been, is to help you play more better games. And the way we do that is by taking the things that you have questions about and kind of unpacking them to kind of show you how things work, ways to make it work better, conversations you can have with your players about it, whatever it is. That's what we do, right? Our goal is to make things better for you, because the easier it is for you to run your games, the more games you will run. And that is ultimately what we want for everyone in this hobby, is to just keep playing games and having a good time doing it. So that's what we're here for. Leave us those topics. If you like what we do here elsewhere on the Misdirected Mark Network, you can back our Patreon campaign. Go to patreon.com/MMP. Patrons get access to the Bamboo Lounge, the after show, and really the big draw, the Slack Room. Slack Room for life. You can come and hang out with us on Fridays on our on our Friday conference calls. You can swap recipes with some of our fine cooks in the Misdirected Mark community. I mean, you and I are good, but like there are like even fancier cooks
you could be
in our
checking
community.
Out, breakfast for pancakes.
Yeah, breakfast for pancakes hangs out in our hangs out in there, putting up pictures of all sorts of food. You talk about role playing games, Kickstarters, Star Trek. There's a lot of Star Trek getting talked about in our community, and it's just a golden age of Star Trek. There's new Star Treks to talk about all the time. Anyway, come join us in our Slack community. We would love to have you. Okay. That all said, if you are able to support the Patreon campaign, we appreciate it greatly. If you're unable to support the Patreon campaign, as always, we understand. It's great. There's another thing you can do. I'm just going to say it really quickly. If you can just get the word out about the show in any way that you can get the word out about the show, talking about us on social media is fantastic, helps us greatly. But if there's any other way, like you're hanging out at your local game store, whatever, telling friends, telling family, you're at the Thanksgiving table and you run into your cousin who's a role player and be like, hey, do you listen to Pandas Talking Games? You can put them right on to us. That would be immensely helpful for us. There's another thing you do. It's grossly impersonal. It only affects soulless algorithms. But it has a chance of finding people who you don't know and that we don't know. And that's also important. And what's that thing?
Well, you could leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or the podcatcher of your choice. Every new review we get really does actually help new people find the show through that cold, impersonal algorithm that sounds so painfully unhappy in comparison to Phil's tell people about us. But anyway, thank you so much to everybody who has already left a review. The other thing that you can do is just, if you're like, boy, I like Phil and Senda and I want to do something for them for the holidays, leave us a review because we read them and it makes us feel really warm and fuzzy inside. Sometimes I just go back and look at the reviews because they make me feel happy.
Also, it's Senda's birthday this episode.
Oh, it's my birthday. You should probably go leave me a review.
Just saying, folks.
Just saying. Okay. Not saying, just saying.
Alrighty. Say, Senda, have you considered what playbook you're going to play for Thirsty Sword Lesbians?
Oh, man, I'm so torn. This show is a joint production of She's a Super Geek and Misdirected Mark Productions, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Bloop.
Clicky.
Got the clicks.
That's good.
Clicks,
I have waveform.
Clickety clicks. I do have. Oh, mine are actually looking a little small. Hang on.
Uh-oh. Do we have to redo?
Yeah. No, I think I just need to pull that dude up a little bit. Maybe I'm just not being as boisterous as usual. I'm not sure. My cough's plenty loud. Okay. I think we're going to try there.
Okay.
That might even be too much. Just burp. Look at you, like, doing your mic test before we start recording.
Always do my mic test before we record.
So professional of you.
Professional.
Unlike me, I just assumed that it's still fine from last time unless it visually looks bad.
But, you also don't take your rig apart.
It's true, I don't, and I literally use it for my work calls.
Yeah.
They're always like, you sound so clear. I'm like, it's because I'm using this beautiful mic.
Yeah, I take this whole thing apart and put it, when we're done recording, I just put it back in the closet.
Yeah.
I really should at some point get an arm, like the
Yeah, no, it's great. And also it was really funny because my boss looked at it, he's like, oh, and he like recognized all of my mics because he's in a band.
There you go.
And he knows more about mics than I do because I have a podcaster level of mic knowledge and he has a musician level of mic knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
Which is somehow still less than a Schmitty level of knowledge of
mic knowledge. Yes. Well, that's like audio engineer level mic knowledge.
Are you ready to begin a show?
Sure.
Okay, here we go.
Look, I don't even have any place to write down times.
Do you need to get a piece of paper? Happy birthday to you.
Yeah, but really, what are we going to talk about?